We see a male gorilla powering over two female gorillas, and Davis comes in and starts speaking calmly to Pablo the gorilla and signing, telling him to calm down. He does, and we find out he's a baby and still learning. Connor is one of the interns and a complete idiot. He's our comic relief in the scene when he gets scared and curls into a fetal position when the gorilla approaches. He thought he was scared of Pablo until he sees George. George is a rather large albino gorilla, and he's pure intimidation. Connor is screaming like a girl, and Davis is signing and speaking softly to George, as if he's a threat. We are about to find out that he, in fact, is no threat at all. He's a sweet, intelligent, and very funny gorilla who's besties with Davis. They're going to crack some jokes about Connor before George starts flipping Davis off, and everyone laughs. It is funny. This gorilla is funny. He and Davis have a fist bump that signals all is well. I'm certain this scene is for the sole purpose of us seeing the very cool new Bronco that Davis is driving, therefore making the company feel that their advertising dollars were well spent. Don't worry, Ford, we'll see your Bronco at least one more time. This is where I need to say that The Rock pretty much plays the same character in every movie, and this one is no exception. He's tough, smarter than everyone else, and always saves the day, as if you didn't know. So George, our albino gorilla, sees the canister land in his habitat, and he of course goes to investigate. He gets sprayed with a neon green gas and literally goes apeshit. A wolf finds the second canister in Wyoming, and he's also doused with spray and goes nuts. And the third canister is found by an alligator who just swallows the sample and disappears under the water in a powerful roll, and he's gone. PJ is running out to tell Davis that something terrible has happened with George, and we get to see him, PJ, get all serious when he says, no, he's in the grizzly habitat.
He's in the grizzly enclosure.
Davis is shocked by this, but when he gets there, he sees a very dead and bloody bear, and poor George was the attacker. He is very confused and scared and still a bit angry, and the sadness in his eyes about what he's done is heartbreaking. Davis is signing with him and talking to him, and we discover he got upset and killed the bear. But the bear hurt him also. When he stands up, we see he has grown significantly overnight. Davis calms him and then says, we need to find out what happened. Connor and Amy, our faithful interns, have found the canister, and they're confused as to how and why it's there. The mystery's building, and the plot is thickening. Claire's excited at the thought of the samples working. She calls it Rampage and says this couldn't be better for us. Now we know.
Because Project Rampage works.
Brainless Brett is panicking, worried that the news will lead back to them and what they created. But ruthless Claire sees dollar signs and wants to use this to their advantage. She calls on Burke, the toughest, baddest, and supposed to be the coolest ex-special ops looking guy, to hunt the canister in Wyoming and get the wolf that found it. This wolf is really big and has attacked its entire pack and killed them. These military men jump out of helicopters thinking they're going to shoot it down and call it a day. I mean, why wouldn't they think that? They are dressed all in black, carrying large weapons, and they're the good guys. But the wolf will say, denied, and will kill each and every one of them off in a gory, gooey mess. This includes Burke. Yep, cool guy gets it as well. We can't leave here without showing you in slow motion the amazing leap this wolf makes when he practically swallows the helicopter whole. This was a pretty cool scene. Special effects galore. George is locked in a rather large cage, and he's very sad and confused and hungry. He signs a couple of times that he's hungry, and people just aren't moving fast enough for him. I don't blame him. I get the same way. Hangry is a thing. So Dr. Kate has found Davis, and she tells him she used to work for Energen, Claire and Brett's company. They had made a serum that was being tested to make test subjects faster, stronger, and meaner. They would have speed and agility and whatever else was injected into the serum. She said she knew of a cure and would help them find it or make it. But she needed to be a part of the team and wanted to get a sample from George.
Guys, we need to get that food in now.
So George was never fed, and at this point, he has finally lost it. Listen, we can't hold this against him. He breaks out and goes on a mini rampage and is stopped by a helicopter with many tranquilizers. Don't miss the footage here of the Bronco again, guys. Russell is a cocky jerk and has already decided what is going to happen and when and where and why. But he does have a southern charm that makes it okay when he's being stubborn. Also, he's just doing his job, and he would say that his grandpa says, Us assholes gotta stick together. So Russell and Davis are going to do the typical alpha dance here for a minute. Too much testosterone and all. Davis is desperate for Russell to understand that George is kind and sweet and can be cured. He's not the beast they think he is. Russell doesn't care. He wants him contained, and that's that. Russell's also going to use this moment to spill the beans on Kate. She had been fired from Energen and sent to prison for manipulating serums and stealing company secrets. Davis is pretty upset by this, until Dr. Kate explains that her brother was sick and she went to work for them to help find her brother's cure. And then they started taking her work and messing with its molecular structure for evil. So she was trying to destroy it all before they could ruin it. And they made her out to be a crazy mad woman who was unsafe to the company and blamed all the bad things on her. She was a good girl at heart, and Davis knew this to be true in his heart, it seems, but was still upset that this meant she didn't have a cure. But there is an antidote that would stop the scary parts at least, and it was called R19. And Dr. Kate says, I can get to this at corporate.
Sounds like a plan.
Claire wants the Rampage animals to make their way to Chicago so the military can kill them and they can take samples from them and then mass produce the serum and sell it for millions. So she goes up on the HQ roof and sets the radio tower frequency so that it attracts the animals to them. The sound is piercing and can only be heard by the animals. Brett, of course, is scared and doesn't understand any of the technical stuff and just keeps looking stupid so Claire can look smart. Davis is telling Russell that George, the albino gorilla, will get very upset when he wakes up. He doesn't like to fly. I'm with you here, my guy. Russell assures him that he won't wake up, but this is the whole point of the movie. So he does wake up, and he obviously never got the food he wanted, and he breaks free and goes ballistic. This is a great action scene between gorilla and man, and shipping containers. We will learn that guns absolutely don't work at this point. He's just too big and too powerful. And so Davis and George had to have a sad spat, and Davis and Dr. Kate have to parachute off the plane. And Davis, being the kind-hearted guy he is, will save Russell as well. But the plane is going to crash, and we think that George is dead. But no, he's too powerful. Amazing serum. We're back on the ground, and the crash verifies that George is fine but escaped. Russell and Davis are now friends and sorta working towards the same goal, with Russell having a better understanding about what is happening. Still love-hate, but better. Male bonding is fascinating to watch.
Those assholes gotta stick together.
This is where Davis tells us the story of George of the Jungle. George was watching his mom get killed by poachers when Davis discovered him hiding under a Jeep. He was the only albino gorilla that they knew of, and Davis decided then and there his life's work would be to save animals and destroy poachers. Dr. Kate asks, "What happened to the poachers when you took George?" Davis, in true rock way, replies, "They shot at us and missed. I shot back and didn't." What a badass. He and Dr. Kate will share their first bump moment here. We find ourselves in your typical military control center, screens with live-action eyes on George and the wolf. They've discovered that they're traveling together to get to Chicago. Davis is stressing that this is not normal behavior and that they can't react in a normal way. They must approach them differently. Davis and Dr. Kate are trying to stress this to the big, mean military man, and he doesn't seem to care. He just wants to play war and go boom boom on them with bombs, pew pew guns, and traps. None of this will work, of course, and I believe David tells them this. But we need some opposition. Russell's standing nearby and trying to side with Davis while still maintaining his neutral position with the military man. Davis and Dr. Kate are taken away, but escape the military police. Russell helps them take a medical helicopter to go to Chicago to look for the antidote.
That went way better than I thought it would.
Yeah.
Russell is left behind to try and convince military man that they don't need to blow up Chicago or the animals, but that they need time to find the cure, so they just need to evacuate the city. It's an action movie. You know it can't go down this way. George and the giant wolf, who they're calling Ralph, have made their way in and are destroying everything in sight and eating everyone they find. Carnage everywhere. Davis and Dr. Kate are flying in when they see the destruction, but also a huge something in the canal. Well, here comes the most massive alligator you will ever see. It's ginormous and scaly and has the biggest, sharpest teeth I've ever seen. When Dr. Kate sees this alligator, she says, "Well, that sucks." Yes, Kate, it does. When all three of our giant beasts get together, it gives off the Godzilla vs. King Kong vibe. Our heroes make their way to the Energen HQ and they find the R19 antidote, but get caught by Claire and Brett. But Dr. Kate hides one and Davis gets shot, but he's so amazing and strong that this won't bother him much and forgets about it completely by the end of the movie. They are taken to the roof, but George and the wolf and the alligator are destroying the building to get the beacon to shut off because it's constantly provoking them. Claire gets all cocky here, and we're so ready for her character to just be gone. So they throw the antidote in Claire's purse, and then George eats her. Yes, eats her. Look, it's a classic image, and it's amazing. All mouth, no teeth, just down the hatch she goes. Davis and Dr. Kate have to figure out how to get down because the building is collapsing, and they decide on a wingless helicopter, and they will make it safely. But not before Russell and dumb brother Brett have a weird encounter in the collapsing lobby. Russell takes a computer and a rat and lets Brett go. Brett will walk outside and promptly die. Not gonna miss him. Sorry, it's the truth. So Davis and Dr. Kate are on the ground, and Kate will just kind of be background here while Davis does what we have been waiting the whole movie for him to do. Open a can of whoop-ass and take on the beasts. George has finally come off the anger with the antidote taken, and he's still large. That won't change, but now he's not mean, and he and Davis are going to clean house. They go after the wolf first. He's a tough fight and does some damage to George and makes Davis work for his life. We discover he can fly because why not? He will finally meet his end by being decapitated by the alligator. Alligator turns out to be the toughest of them all. Very impressed with his power. He really does put a lot of hurt on George, and at one point, we think he will be killed by him. Davis is hurt and scared as well, but our dynamic duo will win out in the end. George will take a pipe from one of the destroyed buildings, and he will stab the alligator right through the eye. And he is finally vanquished. George limps off and appears to be dying. Davis cannot handle this, and he's trying to keep him going. But George is pretty messed up, and our hearts are already breaking here. I teared up. I know, ridiculous because it's a tough action movie, but George is just so sweet. So Davis is reluctantly saying goodbye without saying goodbye, and Dr. Kate and Davis start to mourn when Davis sees George open his eyes. George has been faking it. Such a George move. He will be fine and makes a crude sign about Davis and Dr. Kate, and even Russell have joined us to laugh, and yay, the good guys won, and all are well. Davis and George will do their classic fist bump. It's a thing. Wow, viewers, what do you think? Is this type of genetic mutation possible? And what would we do if the world were taken over by giant beasts? We could again find ourselves in the age of dinosaurs. And who do we think would win then? This was your typical rock adventure action movie, but it didn't disappoint. We loved George, right? This really was reminiscent of Godzilla movies. Anyone besides myself watch those? Cities destroyed, good versus evil, and then Godzilla would just go back into the water? Classic films. Maybe George will also find himself among the classics one day. Thanks for joining me on this journey. Until next time.